Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am Dr. Claudia Albers, Planet X research and professional physicist. And today I'd like to bring to you another one of my articles. This one is entitled The Seals of Revelation, Seal 1. And in Figure 1, we see what comes out when Seal 1 is open. And this is the seal in Revelation 6. So in Revelation 6, we are told about the Lamb of God, which is identified as Jesus Christ, who opens 7 seals on a scroll. As he opens each seal, different colored horses appear, and we are told about several destructive processes which are unleashed upon a certain portion of the world. Several of these unleashed destructive processes fit a lot of events that seem to have happened and are still happening in the world. So it is understandable if one were to ask if these seals have already been opened and if they have already been unleashed upon the world. In this article, we will look at what Seal 1 is likely to entail. So in Revelation 6 verses 1 to 2 we read, "And I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals, and I heard as it were the noise of thunder, one of the 4 beasts saying, 'Come and see.' And I saw, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat on him had a bow, and the crown was given unto him, and he went forth conquering and to conquer." So we are told that there is a noise of thunder once the seal is opened. Thunder is associated with lightning and thunderstorms, which suggests that the time when this horse is unleashed onto the world may be a time when thunderstorms with their associated thunder and lightning will be active in the world and be the major destructive process at a physical level on the planet. You see some of this lightning that is usually associated with large thunderstorms. So we are then told that the rider of the white horse has a bow, but we are not told that he has arrows. This may mean that he appears more powerful than he really is, as without arrows a bow is useless. He looks armed with it, but is unable to do anything with it. In other words, there is deception involved. The world is deceived into thinking that the entity behind what is unfolding is much more powerful than he really is. But a crown is given to him, so this means he is allowed to rule over at least part of the world, and he then uses his power, his position of power and rulership to conquer. What will he conquer? Nations in the world would be the most logical answer. Now, have any nations in the world been conquered in the past few years? Well, we see the nations of Egypt, Iraq, and Libya, which have been conquered in the name of a war against terrorism, which is clearly a lie and a deception. The war on terror was based on a false flag attack on the World Trade Center, which occurred on September 11, 2001. As evidence clearly shows that the buildings collapsed as a result of a controlled demolition. And part of this evidence lies in the presence of termite, the explosives used for controlled demolition within the rubble. In addition to the toppling of reasonable and Western-friendly but strong governments, which were then replaced by either weak governments or various infighting factions, which then allowed terrorism and chaos to take over those nations. And in one particular nation, Assyria, the unwanted government is still there, but most of the country has been engulfed in a war between different factions, which then created civilian refugees. These refugees then started moving to Europe with the blessing of the governments there. However, these refugees do not behave like refugees, but like a conquering force. Refugees are forced to follow the laws of the nations that give them sanctuary, and they certainly are not treated better than the civilians of those nations. But these Middle East refugees were allowed to break any law they wanted, or allowed to get away with no negative repercussions or very light punishment, certainly much lighter than the citizens of those countries would get for the same crime. In addition, these refugees were offered all kinds of incentives in order to keep them coming. They were given free housing and financial help. This has been reported by activists such as Tommy Robinson from the UK. The media from these countries were obviously also against the people and did not report what was really going on, or they printed stories that give the impression that everything was fine. But it was actually as if the governments of those European countries had decided to fight their own citizens and had thus opened their arms to a conquering mob that would do the work for them. Since nations are made out of people, it seems that the people of Europe are in the process of being conquered, suggesting that the white horse is riding across Europe. There are people who believe that an evil world leader, referred to as the Antichrist, is the rider of this white horse. And since we do not yet have a world leader with complete power, that the white horse cannot be riding yet. However, the prefix anti in Latin means instead of. So the word Antichrist means instead of and in place of Christ. And there is one ruler in the world that is stated to be in the seat of Christ and to rule in place of Christ, and that is the Pope, the ruler of the Holy Roman Empire from the Vatican. So the man sitting on the papal throne and ruling the Vatican seems to be the current Antichrist. In addition, just about all world leaders, when they come into power, either visit the Pope or are visited by him, which seems to show that they are seeking favor from the Pope and are thus subservient to him. And if this is the case, it suggests that the nations of Europe are being conquered according to the wishes of the Pope or the Antichrist. This does not mean that we cannot still have another man with that title arising on the world stage. But since all popes have a title which states that they are in the seat of Christ instead of Christ, all popes are antichrists. And we see a picture here of the Pope in his regalia addressing people at the Vatican. Now, the current conquering of Western European nations is thus an indication that the first seal has been opened. But the same conquering spirit is not only affecting the Middle East and Europe, it is also raising its ugly head in other parts of the world. And one example is South Africa, where I lived for many years. The white South African government was judged to be racist, and it was replaced by a mostly black government belonging to the ANC political party in 1994. What has followed in the ensuing years is nothing less than devastating for the whole nation. And I'm not just referring to the white minority population, but for all the people of every color. Instead of building on what was good and working well, the new black government decided to make some drastic changes with some drastic consequences, which has led to huge levels of unemployment, atrocious health care in government-funded hospitals, and very poor education. In conclusion, the fact that many peoples in various parts of the world have experienced their governments turning against them suggests that the first seal has been opened and the rider of the white horse has gone out to conquer. And there's one reference there. This is Dr. Claudia Albers, Planet X physicist. Thank you for watching.